There's a lot online about people who struggle with boundaries. And it can be easy to assume that these are people who just are afraid to put boundaries in place. And while that may be true, there's a lot of people who actually don't know what boundaries to put in place in the first place. Think about it. If you're someone who grew up not really being allowed to exist or constantly having your boundaries crossed, that makes it very difficult to tell the difference between what's a reasonable request and what's just you being sensitive. Because if you weren't allowed to exist, then that tells me you probably were not allowed to feel. So you've had to turn your feelings way down, which means that you've probably navigated life much more by thinking than feeling. And when you do feel something, you start gaslighting yourself. You start discrediting your feelings. And I'll give you an example of how that manifested for me. I had a friend, during a time when I was mostly solitary, there was one person who I would check. And this person, every time I would come away from them, I would feel worse about myself than when I met with them. Because while I was meeting them with, thinking, oh, this is a friend, it was almost like they were always trying to compete with me. Even though they were doing better than me in every aspect, every conversation was putting me down and raising them up. And even when they were doing things to try and get me to a better place, seemingly, it was done in a way that was really condescending or quite, judgmental, quite dismissive. Long story short, it didn't have the desired effect, if that was the desired effect. And I think to myself, man, this person makes me feel terrible about myself. Every time I see them, it's like they're trying to embarrass me in public or they're trying to put me down. But here comes me gaslighting my feelings. I would say to myself, I want to be a better individual. I want to be a stronger man. So I need to stop being sensitive. And this is someone who is here to keep my ego in check. If I can take their criticism and use that as a positive, then that means I'm doing well. I should be able to take what they're saying. They're obviously in the right. They're obviously saying stuff that I need to hear. So I went through a long period of just putting up with it. And it's not until hindsight, looking back, it's like, nah, this person actually wasn't good for me. But because I'm so used to denying my feelings and not treating them as valid, I completely ignored what feelings were trying to tell me. And this is where it comes into boundary setting. Because if you navigate life by thinking, and to a degree you have to, but at the expense of feeling, then that also can mean that you feel like if you don't have a logical explanation as to why you're denying someone or something, then you really have no reason to do so. Like you have to justify yourself, like your feelings alone. Like you can't say no because you don't want to. You need to find a logical explanation to justify yourself or vindicate yourself before other people. And that gets in the way of boundary setting. So in short, what I'm saying is, if you struggle with boundaries, something that can help you to find boundaries is honoring and recognizing your feelings. Feelings are not always right, but they are always valid.